Charles Van Morgan. Good morning. It's the Charles Van Morgan Show. Look at this beautiful flag. We have a great show for you today. We're going to talk about how to avoid police killing you. There are a lot of encounters with police and a lot of citizen encounters with police. And we're going to tell you about how I would handle those encounters. Now, I'm not a licensed attorney, but I do have a doctor of jurisprudence, passed the Tennessee bar exam twice. Worked the road for about 18 years, so I have a advanced knowledge in how to deal with police citizens encounters. And I'm going to tell you how I would act in certain instances dealing with the police, how it might keep you alive, because police kill a lot of people. Let's see if we got anybody in here. Thank y'all for showing up. Police kill a lot of people. A heck of a lot of people. They stop people every day, all day. And if you make the wrong move, it could end up in your death. So police encounters are highly important. It's the government with tax-paid money, with your money, and you can pay for the bullet that kills you. So how to deal with them is vitally important. I know from both sides of the issue, there's a lot of crooked cops out there. Not all of them, but there's a lot of crooked ones. And there's some that want to find a reason to kill you. Absolutely there is. Cops know that. Now, not all of them. The vast majority of street cops are out to protect your life and protect the lives of citizens, and most of all protect their life. They can't protect anybody if they don't protect themselves. That's job one in law enforcement. And they will treat you legally. There are a lot of cops that they won't treat you legally. And cops don't have to tell you the truth. People think it's a law that cops have to tell you the truth. They lie in investigations all the time. Now, they're not supposed to lie under oath in court. And they do that a lot too. And judges let them get by with it depending on who they are and who's their daddy. So I'm going to tell you from a practical standpoint, with using the law as I see it, and a sociological standpoint, how to stay alive when dealing with police. Vitally important. We're going to talk about that. We're going to give you some pointers. I also have a Master of Arts in Sociology, and so I know laws are written on the books, but people apply laws, so it's how they're applied. And they're applied to different people. The same laws applied to different people differently. A lot depending on your social economic status and who's your daddy. So it all depends. And I'm going to give you a broad brush of how to stay alive when dealing with police. That's job one, staying alive when dealing with police. And yes, it is that serious. You make the wrong move and you could end up dead. You could end up dead doing everything right, because there are some police that will kill you and lie about it. There are. They're human beings, and humans are people that have a wrong nature, and they do wrong sometimes. And there's evil people. There are cops that are former snipers in the military. They like to kill people, and they were snipers in the military. So they want to find a reason to kill you. That's absolutely the truth. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to wake you up and tell you that there are policemen out there who will stop you and kill you and lie about it. So I'm not saying run from police. That's absolutely not the thing to do. And I'm not saying be in law enforcement to kill them. That's absolutely not the right thing to do. I'm just telling you to be aware of that. Hopefully the bad ones get prosecuted. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. But I'm going to give you some pointers. There's no guarantees in life of how to really deal with real police in the real world. Not all the baloney that lawyers will tell you, or all the baloney in the law that this is the law and this is how it's supposed to be. Although I will cite the law and tell you how it's supposed to be, and what you can argue in court in front of a lot of rogue judges that don't give a damn about the law. And that's why one of the most important things we can do is vote. voters of truth enraged. And one of the reasons we're enraged is because of police misconduct. And it's not always at the officer level on the street. The problem is much higher up than that. The problem is a lot of our elected officials. And I damn guarantee you they don't have the same law book as we do, because the laws don't apply to them, they apply to us. And even if it's in the law, sometimes stuff don't apply to us anyway, they'll kill you anyway. So I'm not telling you to be afraid. I'm just telling you to be aware when stopped by police. It's not a game. It could mean your life or death. It could be similar to being stopped by somebody that's not a cop that just wants to kill you, because there's some cops out there in a uniform and that's what they want to do. Now, I'm not saying they will, and I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just telling you the facts. There are cops who want to kill people, want to try to find a reason to do it. And I'm not telling you not to stop, because that is very unlikely to happen, but that possibility is out there. And there are cops who abide by the law that like to kill people. That's what they do. They did it in the military. They enjoy killing people. They really do. And they put themselves in positions where they can lawfully and legally kill people. I guess that's their calling. I don't know. I'm not their judge. I know my friend in the military, Larry Bledsoe, told me of a killing machine over in Vietnam, that he loved killing Vietnamese Viet Cons. And some of the things he would do after they were dead to send a propaganda message I won't put on YouTube. They'll probably ban my show. So, but I'll just tell you, he put out some serious propaganda to deter people from fighting against American soldiers by the way he left them after they were dead. But that was a war. That was his job, to win. And I don't have a problem with it in war. That's what you're supposed to do. Now you're supposed to comply with the Geneva Convention, which I believe that they did. So there are people that like to kill. So we're going to talk about police encounters. They're very serious. You get stopped by a police officer, it's not your friendly pastor at your local Baptist church, or it's not your priest at the local Catholic church, although some of those people are dangerous. But you get the point. You're talking about a serious situation. Even a minor traffic stop, you might think it's a minor traffic stop, could result in your death, or even an encounter on the street like this. So I'm just saying, these people are highly trained. They're prepared to kill if they have to, if legally necessary, if you make the wrong move, even inadvertently, and they will kill you. It happens all the time across the United States. In 2025, I'll give you some numbers, how many police officers killed people in the line of duty. And I'm not saying it wasn't justified, I'm just saying they do. And in Tennessee, I'll show you the numbers about police, how many people that they killed in 2025 in the state of Tennessee. And you can look it up in your state as compared to how many police officers were killed. The numbers are astonishing. The number of people killed by police far outnumbers the amount of people that killed police. So they're very prepared. It's an unfair battle, and don't fight a police officer on the street. Fight them in court, even if you lose in court. And a lot of times you will, even when you're right, because of rogue judges that are probably as dangerous by their rogue court rulings, and not all of them are rogues, a lot of them, but still fight them in court, and let's handle things peacefully. Now, if an officer tries to take your life unjustifiably, now everybody's got a God-given right to self-defense. No government can give people a right to kill an innocent person, and I'm not saying that. And I don't know the exact circumstances, but there would be times when you have to fight for your life against a police officer. That's just the truth. I'm telling you, the dark side, the true side of law enforcement. People think it's a game. It's not. They kill people by the truckloads every day in the United States. Almost somebody's killed by a police officer in what they thought was a minor incident where they didn't act appropriately. And I'm not trying to scare people wrongly. I'm trying to tell you reality, that it is very important how you deal with police so you don't end up dead. And I'm not saying be afraid of them. Most of them abide by the law, the overwhelming majority. But they'll still kill you if you do the wrong thing, if they have to protect their lives. They're not handing out roses. They're out doing things that people don't like, making them abide by the law sometimes to protect society. No one likes to get a speeding ticket that they're driving over the speed limit that's a danger to themselves and others. I mean, if you're driving 90 miles an hour on the interstate, you have a hard time stopping if somebody's crashed, or you might run over the tail end of somebody not paying attention. Or if you're drunk driving, nobody wants to be incarcerated in jail. But police officers have that responsibility to protect you and others. And some police officers are out on the road and they just love hating people and mistreating people, like even cops. Some supervisors even love mistreating cops. They're just evil people, and they like to be in a position of authority so that they can mistreat other officers and so that they can mistreat the public. And that's what they do in positions of authority, like the example of the picture icon I got. That woman is very evil, and I have information, inside information, that the public is going to be protected from her, because my inside information tells me that she's retiring from law enforcement, going to work for the Special Olympics. See, I know stuff. So really, that's a good thing for Tennesseans, that evil, wicked, dirty liar that put out a hit on me, tried to have me killed and my kids, is retiring from law enforcement. After she's got a fancy pension from working as a major for a few short months. Wow, isn't that interesting how they pad the retirement by promoting to high positions right before they retire? At your state tax dollar, you get thousands and thousands of dollars in your retirement for being evil and wicked and lying on people and costing taxpayer money. And she literally did that by stuff that's not even involved in my case, that's in the news. Wrinkledy. Wow, well, that's a good thing. So we're going to talk about today how to stay alive dealing with police. That's a major thing. And I'm not saying be afraid of them. I'm not afraid of anybody. I fear God. Very careful what I do in police encounters. And even if you're careful, you can still be mistreated. But your best odds are taking a few pointers from what I'm going to tell you, and none of which, for FBI, I know they're listening to me, TBI, and all the law enforcement agencies, I'm on your side, unless you're evil. But do not hurt or fight or try to kill police. That is wrong. It is evil. And you shouldn't do that. Abide by the law. If you're going to fight them, that's fine. Do it in court. The legal, legitimate way. Now, a lot of law enforcement supervision don't like me saying that. They want to get me saying something illegal so they can kick in my door and put me in jail. And they might do that anyway with me saying, don't fight them on the street. Go along with the program. Unless they try to take your life from you unjustifiably. And then I would try to stay alive. And some of them will. There are those circumstances. But don't fight police on the road. Do not do that. That's wrong. Fight them in court. In state, local courts, and in federal courts. File lawsuits and contest it. And also join vote. Voters of Truth Enraged. Subscribe to this channel. This channel puts out public information fighting the dirty government. And they are a dirty government. People in government power. A lot of them are influenced by demonic forces that have offered them power to sell their soul to the devil. They have. You can look it up. That's biblical. A spiritual world unseen, but it's real. That's why you have so much wickedness and power. It's because a lot of them have sold their soul to the devil. And you can tell, you don't have to hear them praying that they're giving their soul to the devil. You can tell by some of the wicked, evil, dirty lies and stuff that they do. Some of the deceit. A good indicator of a person in power that sold their soul to the devil is the lies that they tell, the deceit that harms humanity, because that's, the devil is the father of lies. I mean, he told the first lie, didn't he? So that's a good indicator. But we're going to talk about that and show you some numbers. We're on our way to our signature bridge, the Henley Bridge, and our pulpit at the end of the bridge, because they won't let me in the courtroom because I got too much of the truth. So if you have a high degree of respect and you believe lawyers are honest and licensed attorneys are above board, then you might not want to listen to me, because I don't believe that. But if you believe somebody that they won't license may be an honest person, I'll show you evidence to prove that, then you might want to listen to me, because I'm so honest. I'm so honest, I believe, in my personal opinion, and I know me and I know them. You know, I was around them all my life in courts, in their dirty courts, working with the dirty prosecutor's office, and also in law school, met a lot of dirty judges. And you know, I read the papers, I'm not a kid, so I have a life experience, and I'm too honest to be an attorney, to be licensed. So that's why we're suing them in federal court. And by the way, I have a letter from my federal court case today that we're going to make sure we don't divulge any confidential information, but we're going to read this to you, pretty much see what's in this letter I just got from federal court today that I filed this lawsuit to try to get my law license. Imagine that, an honest attorney, an honest person that graduated from law school, not a licensed attorney, trying to get his law license. Hard to do in Tennessee. You have to be crooked. You have to protect the crooked, I think. So this is a letter I got from federal court, and we're going to tell you what it says. It's not confidential. We're going to open it live on TV, YouTube, and if you can contribute to help me sue the Tennessee Board of Law Examiners to help fund the lawsuit, to help me get licensed to represent Tennesseans in a court of law. I'm representing you out on the street now, giving not legal advice, telling you what I would do in circumstances. We're getting ready to tell you what I do, and you can listen to what I do, and it's on you what you do. I'm not giving you advice. A disclaimer, I'm just telling you what I do in encounters with police from experience, from being out on the road for 18 years, stopping more cars in those few years than any trooper did in the state, making more arrests than any trooper did in the state. Legally justified, not the bogus ones where people came back with no alcohol level that Colonel Mike Perry's trying to lie about now, saying they haven't run into any instances where people came back sober on their drug test, blood drug test, and they were actually not drunk. Yeah, right. I mean, there are some, he's talking about some of them need to be retrained, but there were indicators. Yeah, that you can get an indicator that somebody's impaired on anybody if you stretch the imagination. It's called lawyering. That's what they do. They take a molehill that means out of nothing, take it and put it out of context and put it somewhere else, and you're drunk. And that's what he's trying to say. Bull malarkey, bull malarkey. Some of those people were stone cold sober. The state troopers, and not all of them, found a reason to arrest somebody because they needed a number, because they do have a quota when they're working federal overtime, and that's perfectly legal, even though it's against state law. Federal law supersedes state law. When they work the federal overtime program, they have to have, when I was working it, and they have to have either some programs are 3 tickets an hour, some are 4, or 1 DUI arrest an hour. So if you work a 4-hour program, then and you don't get any DUI arrest, then you have to have 16 citations on some of the most strict programs. 16 citations, and they can be anywhere from move over law to speeding 5 miles over the limit. Or you could literally write one for speeding 1 mile over the limit. Now that'd be hard to prove because variation and stuff. But if you need a ticket to stay in the program, you could probably write one. They usually write them more than 10 miles over the speed limit. But so you'd have to write 16 tickets. If you got a DUI arrest, then that takes care of 1 hour, and you would only have to write, 12 citations and 1 DUI arrest. So they do have a quota when they're working the federal program. Let's see how many people got in here. We're going to talk about how to stay alive in police encounters. That's number 1 rule. That's their number 1 rule. is stay alive at the end of the shift. That ought to be your number one rule when you encounter a police officer. Stay alive too. Both of you stay alive, you and the police. And I'm going to tell you some helpful pointers that I do that have kept me alive for 61 years. Kept me alive when I made more stops than any trooper in the state. And civilians. Hello. And civilians kept them alive. So we'll tell you about that. Some real live experience on the road with a JD, a law degree, something Matt Perry doesn't have. But he's lawyered up. You can tell by some of the things he said. He's consulted with his staff attorneys that you paid for and figured out how to word it to limit his liability is what he's done. He don't care about the state liability. It ain't his money. And to keep his authority over the state highway patrol. Listen, how many people we got in here? And we will tell you about how to stay alive and your best bet, how I would stay alive in my best bet encounters with the police. I've been pretty successful. But so many people we got in here. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate your time. Hopefully I can give you some value. I believe I can. Better than any other licensed attorneys, I think. And I'm not acting as an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm telling you how I would do. Let's see what we got in here. Thank you all. So yeah, we got quite a few people on board. And so thank you all so very much. Well, I have messed up the screen, and we'll get it back. There we go. So like, share, comment, and subscribe to the show. And let's see here. Ice storm. Yeah, there's an ice storm coming in the news. Thank you for reminding me. And there's a big ice storm coming, supposedly. Now they keep downgrading it. They keep downgrading it, but there's an ice storm coming. A major ice storm coming, they claim. Tomorrow morning, they've changed the date and time. But tomorrow morning, they claim there's an ice storm coming. The governor's declared Tennessee a state of emergency. It's covering several states, so beware. And the thing you need to do is prepare for it. Have plenty of food in case it shuts off the power. Have some alternative form of heat besides electricity, because your power might go out. I myself have got a kerosene heater just in case, and we're going to try to stock up on some food. You should be good for the day. I think it's supposed to start tomorrow in Tennessee. Yeah, thank you for reminding us. So let's talk about police encounters and your rights under the law, and even a little more, as I see them, case law, my rights under the law. Let's frame it that way. To avoid me practicing law, which I'm not, but I know the law. But let's talk about your rights under the law, my rights under the law as far as police encounters. Now, the United States of America is a free country. Citizens are free from intrusion by the government, the Fourth Amendment. And so we have a right to walk around, carry about our activities on public sidewalks, drive down the street without government intrusion, unless they can prove or have suspect beyond a mere hunch that we're committing a crime. So if you're walking down the sidewalk and a police officer walks up to you and asks you a question, now if he asks you just general talk, how's the weather, how you doing, just trying to be community policing, I'm going to tell him, I'm doing good, thank you, and keep on trucking. Generally, a lot of times if police are trying to talk to you, they're either community policing, trying to build up relationships with the police, which is a good thing. They've gotten into that here lately, and that's a good thing. Very good thing. They need to do that. It's harder to mistreat people and you met before, and their life, heard their story. It's harder to mistreat when they're detached from society. It's easier to kill them. You don't know who they are. So the community policing thing that they went to is an excellent thing. They've been forced into that. It was drug into that because of how violent and dangerous they were in the past. And I'm not against police. I'm never been 100% for them. I love police. They're peacemakers. For the most part, some of them aren't. Those are the ones to worry about. And so if you're walking down the street, a police officer wants to talk to you. They say, hey, the nice weather, you know, that's fine. That's called a consensual encounter. Just like any person can walk up to me on the sidewalk and make small talk, there's no rule or law that prevents a police officer from doing that. And just like I have no duty to engage in a conversation with anybody if I'm busy, or if I just don't want to talk to somebody, or they look kind of scary and I'm afraid they might try to hurt me, I'll keep on trucking, keep on walking. So just like any person has a right to talk to you while you're on a public sidewalk or out in public or at the grocery store, a police officer can try to talk to you too. And you have no duty without more to respond or talk to them. You can be rude. You can flip them a bird. There's nothing they can do about that. You can keep walking. You can not answer them. You can if you want to. Now, I do. I mean, what's wrong with being human? As a Christian, I'll say, hello, officer. Thank you for your service. And be respectful. But I don't have to do that. I can keep on going. Now, if they come up to you and ask you, where are you coming from? And I've had them do that before. Because they want to know about, they're interrogating you about a crime, and they can do that. They can ask you. That's still a consensual encounter. So if they ask you, where you been? Or where you going? Or something that is to elicit information that may involve a crime that you don't know, you don't have to answer a question, and you can keep on walking, ignore the question. I wouldn't advise answering it. That's not a good thing. You say, well, I want to be honest with the police, I'm a Christian. Well, they don't want to be honest with you. And anything you say, they can twist it. That's what people don't understand. They say, well, if I tell the truth, that's good enough. No, that's not good enough. Because the truth, even though it exonerates you in your opinion, and if you're ever been in law school, they teach you this stuff. And the public, a lot of the public generally knows this stuff. But even if you're telling the truth and you think what you say exonerates you, if you're dealing with evil people in the government, they can take what you say out of context and make what you say that's completely innocent, that you think exonerates you, incriminate you. Because you don't know what they got, what circumstances they're going to put in what you say. So don't answer questions with police. Where you been? Where you going? Don't answer those. Because even if you tell them the truth, if you got nothing to hide, they can put it in a place that it incriminates you, and you can go to jail for the rest of your life. And you think, well, I didn't do anything wrong. You did something wrong by answering their questions. Don't answer their questions. I've had them ask me questions before. And like, they'll trying to be talking to you. They'll just be generally talking to you, you know, how's the weather? How you doing? And they'll ask you about a criminal act or something from somebody else trying to get inside information. Well, where did you meet that person that they won't find information on somebody? And they could incriminate you in it later, and you'll say, well, I don't want to answer any questions. And then they'll say, well, something like this. Well, we're just talking. It's okay. We're just talking. And, you know, we're just talking. They can still use that against you. They're trying to be friendly with you to elicit information. Just because they say we're just talking doesn't mean that they can't use that information against you. So don't let that sly tactic get you out of it, because they're not changing anything. They're just saying we're just talking, just still trying to get you to say something that you probably shouldn't say. So the main point of that is, if they're trying to elicit information, asking you a question other than how do you like the weather, then I wouldn't answer it. And I might not even answer how do I like the weather, because that can be construed in certain circumstances. You'd be surprised how they can rig things. They can rig them good. That's what they're trained to do, solve crimes. Not necessarily will they convict somebody that's guilty of it. It's a number to them. They got somebody charged with a crime and convicted to go in their stats that it's a safer society they can sell, to be construed as people in power to legitimize themselves that protect the public. For example, here in Knoxville, and the police chief might hate me for saying this, but this is the truth. Now, some of his policies are good. I got them. I agree with the reduction of violence policies where they hire people to try to keep down youth violence. Spending money on that is a good thing. It is. It costs money, costs taxpayer money. But if we're trying to save lives of children and paying government officials and people in the government, not necessarily government officials, but paying people through government tax money to try to keep children alive through skills that they have through an education or through knowledge, then that's a good thing. I'm all for spending tax money, they don't like to do that, to try to keep down the youth violence. That's excellent. It might protect you. Anything they can do to do that within reason is a good thing, and he's done that, and I appreciate that. They're doing that in the city of Knoxville. People think that's a waste of tax dollars. That's not a waste of tax dollars. A waste of tax dollars is funding the billionaires, giving them tax breaks. Take some of those tax breaks away from billionaires and give it to people who will try to intervene in youth child violence, talk to them, make friends with them, try to guide them in being peaceful and living productive lives, spend money in education. That's the best use of tax money. But the thing about, they're bragging about murders down. Let's see how many people got in here and we'll talk about that. They're bragging about murders down. Like, share, and comment. And they're bragging about murders down in the state of Tennessee, here in Knoxville. But all across the nation, the trend generally statistically is going down for all murders, regardless of what they did in the city of Knoxville. So they're taking credit for a natural trend. Things go up and they go down, which they will, to maintain their legitimacy, act like they're doing something. And they may be to a certain extent, and they may not, because the trend is down nationwide, not just in Knoxville. So even a road city that don't do anything right, that's probably a downward trend. So they're taking credit for that. That may be not 100% justified, maybe a little bit. So they like to solve cases, whether or not somebody's guilty is another thing on the list, depending on the honesty of the officer and the honesty of the department. And some of them are pretty honest, and some of them are dirty as hell. Like this screen icon picture I got, that woman's dirty as hell, and I know it. I've lived through it, and I'll show you some evidence of what that woman did, and made it all the way to the top. So I'm not just saying, I'm telling you, I know, and it ain't propaganda. Propaganda's false information. This stuff I've seen with my own 4 eyes when I got glasses on. So, and that's the reason why you got Unbridled news. That's the reason why you should listen to me. I'm not talking about a war fought from the bench. I've been in the fire and survived it. And now we, because this involves you, are fighting back with truth, authenticity, and we're going to win this fight because God's on our side. So we're talking about how to deal with police. You're just joining me how to deal with police to keep yourself 6 foot above ground. Interactions with the police. This is stuff I would do because I know from experience I stopped more cars than any trooper in the state for more than half a decade, made more safe arrests, and never killed anybody, never had to, never wanted to. And there have been a few times where my life was extremely at risk, but the most my life has ever been at risk has not been on the road by civilians. This is an important point. If you're just listening to Unbridled news, here's a little truth, astonishing. the most of my life, 18 years on the road as a police officer, doing a better job than most officers on the street as far as keeping the fatality down. That's numbers. Numbers don't lie. I'm not bragging, I'm telling the truth. I was good for your safety. Now, I know what AI says, and I know what Google says, and I know what the state government says, and I know what judges say, and I know what the truth is. I was there, I seen it. They lie. They lie, lie, lie. That's the truth. Now, just one man said, no, a lot of people know that, but they got to keep up the facade of the government, because they'll punish them too. The government will punish you if you tell the truth. A lot of times people in government power will. They're demonically influenced. The most my life in 18 years of law enforcement and also working in jail has ever been in danger has not been by any civilian at all. It has been by actions of government officials, by law enforcement officers. My life's been in danger by them. Amazingly, huh? Isn't that kind of different, unbridled news? I'm saying that arresting more people for drunk driving than anybody in the state. Look it up. It's numbers. It's real. I'm not lying about that, exaggerating. The most dangerous thing you can do in law enforcement is taking people's freedom away from them. That's one of the most dangerous. Another one is responding to domestic calls where people lose their damn minds and, get a divorce. But is not in making dangerous arrests. I did it effectively, safely. And I can't remember an excessive force complaint that I ever had making arrests, except for one that involved a lawsuit. And it was tried before a jury, so the facts were looked into. And I was completely exonerated by a jury of my peers. And now the Board of Law Examiners uses that against me. A legal proceeding I won, they use against me. If I lost a legal proceeding, sure as hell they'll use that against me, even if I win. So it doesn't matter what you do, you lose in the government. If you're on our level of society, which is the mass populace, because they're better than us, they don't live by rules. They make the rules and break them if it don't benefit them. That's just the damn truth. The most my life has ever been in danger, and get this, is not by the public, not by criminals, not by thugs, not by bank robbers that work on the street that aren't in government. It has been by people, like it's in that screenshot, public officials, paid by tax dollars, that have endangered my life, caused it more likely for me to get killed than any person I ever arrested or any criminal on the road. That's been by law enforcement officers. Did you hear that? So what I'm telling you today about how I deal with officer encounters is from a true perspective, knowing the truth. Now, they would tell you, a lawyer will tell you, all policemen, they'll obey the law and do what they say, and everything's nice, and they're out here serving you and protecting you. And if you don't try to hurt them, they won't try to hurt you. And everything's wonderful. It's a beautiful world. Abide by the law. I'm upholding the system because I have to. They got my paycheck. They won't tell you that, but that's the truth. But if you want to hear the real truth, unbridled news. Speaking from personal experience, been through the fire, I'll tell you as Representative Burchett, I'll tell you the dadgum truth. People to fear. Maybe him, I don't know. He's probably one of the best of the worst, if that's saying anything. The most people to fear may not be your thug on the street, your murderous thug on the street. They have no power to stop you with legal authority. The most dangerous thug, maybe, and I love police, but I'm saying this, they know it too, maybe someone in uniform with a badge with legal authority to stop you that don't abide by the law and will kill you if you give them half a chance. And even if you don't get them a chance. So your best bet, well, maybe to listen to how I deal with them and follow in my footsteps, knowing the Burchett's dadgum truth. Yeah, it's dadgum truth that'll keep you alive. I don't like to walk in front of cars, so I don't walk in front of them. That's the truth. The most dangerous people on the planet, in my experience, haven't been people, criminals, street criminals. They haven't been. They've been policemen. law enforcement administration, the police departments, have literally tried to kill me. That's not a lie. That's just the damn truth. So when you're thinking about encounters with police, keep that in mind. Maybe the same way you think about encounters with thugs that aren't police, like happened just maybe a mile from here on Broadway near the Salvation Army Homeless Center by a thug that tried to stab somebody. Maybe a policeman can be in certain instances, and this is popular, it's Unbridled news, this is the truth. You want to stay alive, listen to how I do it. If you don't, you trust law enforcement, you trust the government. I trust them less because I know you don't know who they are. They're chameleons sometimes than a street thug, because you're leery of somebody coming up to you in dirty blue jeans, half kept, that has a knife in their hand. But how about a policeman that turns on blue lights that stops you? And I know the wind's blowing. The mic didn't work that good yesterday. So the policeman that pulls up behind you might be more dangerous than your general street thug holding a knife walking up to you. You might want to be just as cautious. Now, I'm not saying handle them the same way, run, because they do have legal authority. And they might not necessarily be wanting to do that, but they might. So keep that in the back of your toolbox for a reality check. Because the law enforcement officer with blue lights on your car might be the one that fires a bullet and kills you or cuts you. A lot of policemen carry knives. Now, I know they carry them, and here's what they tell you. Here's what they tell you. So make it look like they're good. They carry knives. A lot of them carry knives. Smart ones carry knives. But they carry them because if you jump on top of them where they can't get to their guns, they got them handy and they'll stab you. They'll cut you. They're going to stay alive, which is nothing wrong with that if you jump on top of them unjustifiably. But they tell you, and in court they'll say, well, this is to cut seatbelts off. In case need to get somebody out of a car in there. No, it's not. It's designed for your self-protection, or if you want to murder somebody. That's just the truth. Welcome. Come on in. Charles Van Morgan, Unbridled News. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Help me fund my civil lawsuit in federal court against the Tennessee Board of Law Examiners. And they think it's wrong for me to sue them. That's not wrong to sue them. It's like it's not wrong to sue police officers. It's wrong to try to kill them on the streets. So help me fund the lawsuit if you can. If you can't, I understand. So, in dealing with police on the street, if they walk up to you and start a general conversation, if you want to talk to them, that's fine. It might not be a bad thing to have a friend that's a cop. It's probably a good thing. But if they start asking you questions, don't answer the questions. If they start talking about the weather, if they start talking just general conversation about things that have no relationship to any of your activities, it'd be fine to say, yeah, the weather's great, or talk about the ice storm that's coming up. But don't answer any questions that they have, where you're going, or where you've been, or where your kid's at, or anything like that, because they're going to use that against you if they want to. They sure as hell can, and they're asking for a purpose. They're paid to solve crimes, and actually they're paid to keep people in power above them in power. That's what their job is, to keep people in power. They have to solve some crimes to appear legitimate. You know, that's sociology 101, to maintain power. So they have to protect the public to a certain degree, but their main job is to protect the safety, health protection, and power of the people that employ them, the people that empower, that are over them. Just like that trooper's job when he was stopped by a Metro Nashville police officer And I'll speak up. I know the wind's blowing. Just like when he was stopped by a Metro Nashville police officer, his job was to protect Cameron Sexton. If it was to protect the public, he wouldn't have been flying at a high rate of speed through a construction zone, endangering construction workers, endangering the public. That's not his job. Cameron Sexton, there's a train. So we might get stopped if we don't hurry by the train. But so his job was to protect Cameron Sexton, not abide by the law. And that's not their job to abide by the law. It's their job to protect people in power, to protect the legitimacy of people in power. Now they have to appear legitimate to solve some crimes for you, but that's not their main focus and function. And they really don't give a rat's ass about protecting the public. For the most part, the people in power don't. They care about maintaining their power. And that's what they do. They solve a few crimes, but they commit a few on the way to maintaining power. And that's how they do it. And that's what they're for. So keep that in mind when you're pulled over by a policeman and when you're having a conversation with them. That they're keeping people in power that are in power. So if they ask you a question about where you at, where you been, then ask them, this is the key legal term that I do. And there's videos online where you can see me doing this. And it's a legal technique that pins them down, that lets you know what the hell's going on. And here's what you say. If they're asking, hey, where you been? Or where you coming from? They're trying to solve a crime or pin one on you. Then you say, here's the key phrase. You say, am I free to leave? That's what I say. I'm not telling you to say that. You can say whatever you want to. You can spill the beans if you want to. You can tell them where you been, where you coming from, be completely innocent. And then they'll lock you up and put you in jail for a crime you didn't commit. You know, if that's what you want to do. What I do is I say, they start asking me questions, and I've still gotten falsely arrested for doing that, but I got the hell out of it, didn't I? Because I didn't do anything wrong, because I used legal terminology, and they were wrong. And they even used fake case law to try to act like I did something wrong. They tried to present a case that said because I didn't talk to them, that they had to arrest me. What a bunch of bull malarkey. It didn't fly in federal court. The federal judge didn't dismiss the case, still had them on the hook. They tried to use legal case law and use it in the wrong way. They try every trick in the book. They're not honest people for the most part at the top of the administration. They'll lie, and especially if they mess up and doing something wrong, they'll lie to cover it up. You ain't never seen a bunch of wicked, evil, corrupt, cruel people when they mess up and they want to protect somebody, the lies that they'll start telling when they do that. That really gets them a hornet's nest started. When they make a mistake and you try to point it out, oh my goodness, you never seen the demons come out of the woodwork. And so when they approach you on the street, in a public forum, sidewalk, and they start asking questions, where you been? What are you doing? Were you over here? Any question like that, then you ask them politely, as respectfully as you can. Now, I don't, but that's just me, because I'm not afraid of them. But I would ask them, am I free to leave? Now, that's a legal buzzword, very powerful, important words. Some of the most important words known to man on the face of the planet dealing with the government. Am I free to leave? That's important. That's important. Why? Because that pins them down. Because if you are not free to leave, if they say yes, leave. If you're not free to leave, you're free to stay technically too. I mean, you can stay there and sit there and shut up, but if they say yes, you're free to leave, that means you're not in police custody. And that's important. Because if you're in police custody, you're not free to leave. If they say no, you're not free to leave, then that's important. That's important because you're in their custody. You cannot go. So they have detained you. They have taken away your right to be a free person, and they have to have a reason to do that. They can't just do that at random. They can't walk up to me on the sidewalk and tell me to stop for no reason. They have to have a constitutional reason, a reason justified by law in order to do that. This is America. We're free people. They can stop us, but it has to be based on a reason. It can't be unreasonable search and seizure. It can't be unreasonable. It can be reasonable. They can stop you for a reasonable reason. It has to be articulable. It can't be, well, I just wanted to stop because I thought he committed a crime or he might have. And they have to be able to articulate exactly what you're doing that made them suspicious of you, that made them want to stop you. So they can walk up to you and ask you where you're going, where you've been. They can do that. It's consensual. If you consent to it, that's fine. I wouldn't. Hell no, I wouldn't. But you have and that's the key word you say, am I free to go? Am I free to go? A lot of people say, am I being detained? That's another way to put it. And I'm going to explain to you, we're getting on the other side of the bridge, why that matters so much. And I'll give you a little hints, because when you're in their custody, when they're taking away your freedoms, which you have every constitutional right to unless they have a reason, then the Constitution kicks in, your constitutional rights kick in, because you're in their custody. So they have to have a reasonable articulable suspicion of why they stopped you, not necessarily that you committed a crime. Hello, but that you might. Yeah. Okay. but so they have to have a reason you committed a crime, and they might. But if they tell you you're not free to leave, then don't leave. Don't leave. I wouldn't. And then they can use force to stop you. And we're going to talk to you about that. Talk to you about a few legal cases, about case law. And case law is what's happened in the past that has been tried in the court of law. Facts have happened. Different circumstances have happened. And then how the courts have adjudicated all the way up to the highest court in the land, the United States Supreme Court, which is case law for every state in the nation. It's supreme law. So based on those same set of facts, if you're in that similar position, case law says you have those same rights, that it's supposed to play out the same. So let's look at the view. We're on our way to the edge of the bridge, and we will talk about not getting killed by cops and how to interact with them, how I do. Now, you can do whatever you want to do. And I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just telling you how I do it for my own safety, health, protection, and well-being. And they still might kill me. I don't think so. And I'm not telling you to be afraid of cops. I'm just saying, you know, you get approached by a thug on the road walking up to you with a knife. When you see blue lights behind you, I'm not saying treat them the same, but you might want to be wary. A thug on the road with a knife walking up to you, like happened about a mile from here, can stab you. And so can when you get stopped by police on the side of the road. It can end up the same result. And we can increase our odds staying 6 foot above ground. It's that serious dealing with police. Just like it is when you deal with a thug walking up to you on the street with a knife. They can kill you, and so can a cop. So don't let your guard down. Here's a beautiful view. We're going to show you the case. As we open the letter, I won't show confidential information. Subscribe if you can, and we'll tell you how I deal with police to stay alive. I made it this far. Let's hope I make it a little far longer. Let's look at the view. Thank y'all for joining me. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And a bunch of haters on here. Wait in line. Pick a number and wait in line if you hate me. So here's a beautiful view of the bridge here on the Henley Street Bridge. You can see the sun about to come up. Got almost 100 people in here. Wow, wow. So I got on my suit and tie. They won't let me in a courtroom. They let foreigners in the courtroom. And that courtroom right there is probably people from other countries. And they won't let me in the courtroom to represent you all. So I'll try to represent you all as a civilian here on the sidewalk. not giving you legal advice, but giving you political commentary about how things really work for them really well, and they don't work for us. They don't work for the mass population. It's unbridled news. It ain't the lies they tell you. It ain't the lies from Con News Network or Channel 8 News. This is the truth from independent journalists, and we'll tell you the truth. A little bit different story, actually a hell of a lot different story than what they say, completely opposite. News channels won't tell you to watch out when you get pulled over by blue lights, you might end up dead. They won't tell you that. You might. You absolutely might. If you don't think that's true, read the news and you'll see how many people get killed by police and how many people get cleared by police by the people at that courthouse over here. So, and then there's the federal courthouse right there where we can file federal lawsuits. So don't sue them, don't fight them on the road. Don't fight them on the road. Fight them in court. Fight them in court. So we're going to talk about my rights as far as how I do when I'm dealing with police. If I'm walking down the sidewalk and one of them walks up to me, where are you coming from? I'm going to ask him, am I free to go? That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to answer the question. I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not going to say it's a nice day. You might say, hello, officer. Am I free to go? You might be nice if you want to. I don't. Because I don't want to, because I don't have to. Now, if you think it's better for you to smile and be friendly, go ahead. It might work. I don't know. I don't have to, and I'm not going to. But ask them if you're free to go. Those are key, important words because they kick in the Constitution. Because if you're not free to go, then you have constitutional rights according to the Constitution. You have 4th Amendment rights. You have 5th Amendment rights against self-incrimination. And hello, even if you've done something wrong, in America, the government has to prove it. The government has to prove it. You don't have to be a witness against yourself. That's 5th Amendment, that's self-incrimination. 6th Amendment, you got legal rights as far as representation. Because as far as the law is concerned, you're a novice. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a novice as far as law is concerned. Because you have a different expertise. Or maybe you are experienced in law. You can self-educate yourself. And I would advise people to educate themselves about police-citizen encounters. There's a lot of information out there, and I'm about to give you some information today. Better information you'll get anywhere else. Because other people won't tell you the dark side like me, that police, some of them are like snipers in a war. They want to find a reason to kill you. And they will do it if you give them a chance. I'm going to tell you how to minimize that possibility of happening. So if they're on the street and they ask you a question, ask them if you're free to go. If they say yes, if you're free to go, you're also free to stay. I wouldn't. Unless they are giving you a trespassing warning or something like that. But if you're on a public sidewalk, they ask you, where are you coming from? And you ask them, am I free to go? Or am I being detained? And they say, no, you're free to go. Or if they say, are you free to go? And they say yes, then you can stand there. If you're free to go, you're free to stay, but I would go. If they say no, you're not free to go, you're being detained. You're in police custody, and they have taken away a right of yours, and it should be justified. They've taken away your right to freedom. In the United States, the government cannot seize you, they can't stop you, they can't detain you without a lawful reason. They have no right to do that. They do have a right under specific circumstances. So if there's a crime being committed and they think there's a crime being committed or about to be committed or has been committed by you, and they can articulate that, then they can stop you and detain you. They can ask you where you've been, and you can say, am I free to leave? And if they think there's a crime that has been committed, about to be committed, or in the process of being committed or has been, then they can tell you, no, you're not free to go. Stop. but they have to be able to articulate what they think you are doing. And they can tell you no and stop. Don't fight with police on the street. It's not a good idea. Please don't do that. It's not safe for them. It's not safe for you. I don't do that. Never have. Now, they said I have. Let's see the body camera. They said I resist arrest. That's one thing. They'll lie. And if they're lying, you won't see a body camera later. I would bring my own camera. Now, they busted my phone, and it was live on Facebook, so I didn't get to record it. But if you're recording live, and even if they bust your phone, you might be able to get a recording. Or if you're broadcasting before 2 million people in the last 6 months, it might be recorded too. So if they say no, and we're at our pulpit now, then they've not taken your constitutional rights. They are alleging they got a Fourth Amendment right to stop you, and they better have that right. Let's look at the beautiful view here. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And let's see, a cop detained me for no reason, and I'm white. I just chilled out for a minute. We figured it out, and he left. Why do people have to make it harder for themselves? Because, and let me answer that question. That's an important question. Because that was your experience. You particularly in one isolated incident. And you're right, absolutely right. You don't have to get all excited and act mean and everything like that. That's absolutely true. That's a super tactic. But what you're talking about is one isolated incident that it worked out for you. So you're just saying, everybody else just be cool and everything be fine, because that's what happened in your one particular isolated world. And I hate to tell you this, but you're not the only one in the world. The world doesn't revolve around you. I'm just telling you the truth, unbridled news, and I don't care if you don't like it. I mean, you're just saying, just chill out, ain't that serious? And I'm telling you, dude, it is damn serious. Just because that worked out for you don't mean it don't work out for about 1,300 people last year that were killed by police. So that's good, but the world's a little bigger than you. Some people act chilled and cool, and they get killed. There's more people in the world than just your little isolated incident. That's what science does. It don't take somebody's little world and say, I believe this because this is what I've seen in my little world. Science, which is a master of arts in sociology, criminology, studies all circumstances, for the most part, known, and studies them and tells you the best odds in all those circumstances. So, you know, I mean, you can say, well, I acted cool and everything's cool. Yeah, but that don't mean it didn't work. Somebody else acted cool and everything wasn't cool. They're not going to tell a story because they're dead. So, you know, open your eyes a little bit. Just because you weren't mistreated doesn't mean thousands and thousands of people are not treated right. That some of them might be mistreated. So it's a little bigger than you. I mean, I'm just saying, you know, people are so self-centered. The world's a little bigger than me. It's a little bigger than you. That's why you get educated. There's people that love cops. I do. I appreciate what they do. That don't mean I'm stupid. And I've acted cool with them and everything's been cool. I've acted cool and everything's not been cool. So, you know, we're talking about your best odds. So, in 2025, in the state of Tennessee, there were 54 officer-involved shootings in the state of Tennessee. So maybe some of those people acted cool. And we're not literally talking about right or wrong in that sense. I'm going to tell you what right and wrong, according to as I see the law with the doctrine of jurisprudence. I'm talking about practical effect, how to stay 6 foot above ground. To hell with the law. The law might get you killed sometimes. It literally might. Abide by the law the best you can. I'm talking about how to stay alive. So if you are approached by police and they try to question you about your activities, ask them if you're free to go. That's important because like you're off to see the wizard because of the wonderful things he does. You're off to listen to Charles Van Morgan because of the wonderful things he tells you. Because if you ask them if you're free to leave, and they say no, then that kicks in your constitutional rights. The constitutional right, you're in custody. You have the right to remain silent. If you're charged with a crime, you have the right to an attorney if you can't afford one. You have the right to be represented. They can't beat a confession out of you. They can't beat the truth out of you. They can't beat anything out of you. They can't force you to be a witness against yourself, even if you're wrong. That's a right in America. If you don't like that right, you don't understand it, that's tough. That is your right, because if they didn't have that right in America, we came from England, the government was oppressive. It's set up because people left England because of oppressive government. The government be so oppressive, they'll put everybody in jail. So you don't have to, they'll get a confession out of everybody. So the government's powerful. It's not about people, it's about not being powerful. The government's powerful. The only way people are powerful is we collectively get together and vote, which is the ultimate end goal of this channel, vote. So are you free to go? And that kicks in all your rights. Now, it can be construed legally in a court. They'll determine this. And if you're in a courtroom and you're confronted by an officer and they start asking you questions about where you at, where you been, where you going, trying to solve a crime, trying to get you incriminated or to incriminate yourself, which is what they're trying to do, it will be litigated later. It can be whether or not you were free to go. Because if you were free to go and you didn't, it's a consensual conversation, so they can use whatever that you said against you. If you say, I'm coming from such and such address, and there just happened to be a murder at that address or next door or in the area, and they charge you with it because you said you were there, and you said, well, I didn't know I was free to go, and they were detaining me, then that is a whole thing that has to be litigated, whether or not you're free to go, what kind of encounter it was, whether it was a consensual. Because if you ask them, am I free to go, then it takes the ambiguity away. Because if you don't ask them that question, then it'll probably be litigated whether or not you're free to go. That's important, whether or not you're free to go. Now, it can be construed based on the circumstances that you weren't free to go. Because if there's an officer standing behind you, he's got his gun on us and asking you, where you been? Or if there's an officer blocking your path, then it can be construed that you weren't free to go, so it wasn't a consensual encounter. What you're doing when you're asking them if you're free to go is you're taking the litigation out of it. You don't have to prove that you weren't free to go. All you have to prove is that you asked them if you're free to go and they said no. So that takes the litigation out of it that you were not free to go. So it wasn't a consensual encounter. So you had rights. If you can't prove that it was not a consensual encounter, then whatever you said was consensual and they can use it against you. They don't have to read your rights. It's consensual. You volunteered that information. Don't volunteer information. If you volunteer information, but you weren't free to go, but you didn't ask them, then it can still be proven, but you have to prove that. Like, there's an officer behind me. I didn't feel like I was free to go. So why don't you just ask them instead of having to worry and have a jury figure that out? Ask them, am I free to go? Now, you can literally not ask them that. And an officer be behind you, one in front of you, one beside you, and they ask you, where you at? And you said, well, I felt like I had to answer that question because there was officers surrounding me, so I wasn't free to go. And that could be construed, but you literally have to adjudicate that. So just say, am I free to go? And if they say yes, then if you're free to stay too. If you want to stay, I wouldn't answer any questions. I mean, if you're somewhere where you think you need to be, but don't answer questions. And if you're free to go, I would go. Leave the scene, go somewhere else. And if you think they're going to charge you with a crime, I'd go talk to an attorney. Is what I would do. And I'd talk to myself. Yeah, get legal counsel for most things is what I would advise. Licensed attorneys, and that's your best bet. And also take them with a grain of salt. They also have the government's hand on their law license, so they're not completely on your side. They're officers of the court. Keep that in mind. But they will, some of them real good ones, try to help you the best they can under the rules. I think the district attorney, the public defender's office here in Knoxville are some excellent people that will do everything they can do. Now, some of them give you bad information, but that's your best bet. And hire a real good lawyer. I'm not going to mention any names, but so ask them if you're free to go. If you are, hit the road. If you're not free to go, then I wouldn't answer any questions. And tell them that you're not going to answer any questions. And if he says yes, tell him have a good day, keep walking, don't argue. If the officer says yes, leave. If the officer doesn't answer, keeps talking, I would again ask him, am I free to leave? If you're free to leave, then if he doesn't answer, you say, well, then I'm going to keep walking. Make him tell you you're not free to leave. And then, if they say you're not free to leave, remain silent. Don't answer any questions. You have that right. They can't even use that against you. If the officer asks where you're going, why, respectfully, I don't want to answer questions. Am I free to leave? And remain calm. Now, I stand up to them pretty good because I don't like them messing with me. I know my rights, and I know how to sue them in federal court, and I damn sure will, because that's my right. There's nothing wrong with suing them in court. There's something wrong with fighting them, using violence on the street. Don't do that. So if an officer asks for ID, I would ask, am I legally required to identify myself? If you're being accused of a crime and he can articulate a crime, then you are required to identify yourself. And I would give my ID. I wouldn't have a fist fight over ID. I personally give it to him. I don't care to not identify myself. I mean, I'm not going to not identify myself. I'm not going to refrain from doing that. Some people don't like to give them ID. If you're a passenger in a car you're not the driver, then you're not required to give them ID unless they have specific articulable reason why they suspect you're committing a crime. But if they ask you to give them their ID, then they're supposed to have a reason. I would give it to them because they don't necessarily have to tell you their reasoning at the time. They may have a reason. If you refuse to give them your ID, they may use that against you and tell you why later, after you're in the backseat of the car, why they wanted it, what crime they thought you were. So I'd give them ID. So never lie about your name. They can charge you with giving false identification. So don't do that. So tell them I'm not resisting. I'm going to remain silent, and have your hands visible. No sudden moves. I'd debate them. I wouldn't advise people to do that. I know the law, and I'm not going to be arrogant. I don't excessively argue, but I cooperate with them if they're ordering me to do something, even if it's not lawful. To avoid a physical confrontation, you can work stuff out later in court. That's where to have the disagreement in court. It's civilized warfare in court. Don't fight officers on the street for your safety and for theirs. Talk nice to them the best you can. I don't. If they're detaining you, ask them what are you suspected of doing, and they should tell you. If they don't, they can still detain you. I hear a lot of arguments on YouTube. What have I been detained for? They might not want to tell you right then. They might have a real good reason, and they might not want to tell you. Still go along with the program, even if they don't tell you. If they stop you, they don't have to tell you why they stopped you for. It might be they had a mass murder down the street and they don't want to tell you. They want to get you quickly by surprise before you can fight them. Go along with the program. They don't have to answer every question you got right on the scene on the side of the road. They're not concerned about that. They're concerned about staying 6 foot above ground. So don't worry about if they don't tell you why they're stopping you and all that. You're going to get yourself hurt sometimes. If you argue with them, don't argue with them. If they pull you over and you say, why did you stop me? And they won't tell you, and they say, want your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance. I would advise you, and I'm giving legal advice, I would advise you to give it to them. Because if you don't, and you say, well, tell me why you stopped me. They may not want to, and they may not have to, and it might cause you a lot of trouble. I would personally give it to them, even if they're not giving you a reason. Now, you can worry about that later in court, that they didn't have a reason, and worry about that in court, in a civil lawsuit, whatever you got to do. Don't do anything violent on the road. Follow their general commands. That's what I would do. Now, sometimes I don't. You're taking a chance when you do that. Insist that they tell me a reason. Now, what generally happens on a traffic stop, they'll stop you, blue lights, and in Tennessee, blue lights behind your car is considered a seizure. It's not that way in other states, which means the Fourth Amendment kicks in. And the Highway Patrol had a 7-step thing that they said when they stopped you. I read the script because if somebody complained about what I said, then I read exactly what they said. They tell you, they say, this is what they did unless they've changed it. And they may have. I'm Officer so-and-so, I'm Trooper so-and-so with Tennessee Highway Patrol. The reason I stopped you is because you were doing 85 in a 40. Is there any legal reason you're going that fast? And you're asking if there's a legal reason, because there's not a legal reason. That's a catch-22 question. There's really not. So anything you say is going to be used against you. And you are, if you say anything that you say other than denying their accusations is an admission. If you say, I was doing 55, I wasn't doing 85, then you've admitted to going 55, and that's over the speed limit. You're guilty by default. Any admission over the speed limit is an admission of guilt, and you will be found guilty in a court of law. They'll have a prosecutor in the prosecutor's office to give you the right to testify, and you'll say, the officer tell his story. He'll say, I was running radar on I-40 or on Kingston Pike in a 40, stationary radar. I was at such place. I seen a red Corvette coming down Kingston Pike. Appeared to be a high rate of speed. Looked like it was doing 85. I confirmed on my radar it was 85. I proceeded after the car. I didn't lose sight of it, pulled over. The driver was such so-and-so sitting right here, and I issued a citation for doing 85 and a 40. And then they'll give you a chance to testify. And you say, well, I was going down Kingston Pike, and I was doing 55, and the officer stopped me and wrote me a ticket. I wasn't doing 85. They're going to find you guilty. You admitted to speeding. And if you don't admit to how fast you're going, the Attorney General's office is going to ask, well, how fast do you think you're going? And if you don't know, if you say, well, I don't know how fast I was going, but I wasn't going 85, by default you lose because you don't know how fast you're going. So you don't know if you're doing 85. You don't know. And by default, this is the way it works in the legal system. The way it works for them is he knows how fast you're going. He's going to testify, I know they were going 85. I saw them going that fast, and it was confirmed by radar. So by default, he wins. He knows and you don't. So he's going to win that case. So don't tell them, I mean, don't go over the speed limit, but they're going to win by default. So don't make any admissions, even if you're guilty, because of the fact that I don't make any admissions. I'm not telling you what to do. Because of the fact that they might make an admission worse. Now, when you're in court, you want to get the best deal that you can get. You don't want to for them to find you guilty of what you've done and stack on other stuff. And if you give them, and even if you did wrong and you feel like you should pay the payment for what you did wrong, which is absolutely fine. I get that. As a Christian, you pay to Caesar for what's Caesar's. But what you don't understand with is you're dealing with people that are going to get as much out of you as they can. They're going to get a pound of flesh out of you for something minor. So if you give them the minor thing, they're going to get a pound of flesh out of them. So even if you believe that you should pay for the penalty that you did, don't give them a pound of flesh. Let that be a bargaining chip where you can admit after you've already decided on what the penalty is for what they're going to do for you. That's why you don't just spill the beans to dishonest people or people that think you ought to be punished to such a severe amount. So don't tell them that. Even as a Christian, don't tell them that, because they'll excessively punish you. So even if you feel like you need to be punished, absolutely, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I get that. Some people are like that. You're as honest as the day is long. But if you give them that you did that wrong, you want to pay the consequences, that's fine. What they're going to do is excessively punish you. They're going to take a pound of flesh. So take the punishment and do that, but hold the guilty plea until you find out they're not going to take a pound of flesh, because they damn sure will sometimes. if you understand what I'm saying, it's very clear to me, and I'm just telling you the way these people are. They'll take a pound of flesh for something minor. So if you get pulled over by police in a car, you pull over where it's safe to, and if you have to go a long way, if you're a single person by yourself, a woman, then and you don't want to pull over because you're not sure it's a cop, or it might be a dirty cop that might want to try to kill you. I understand that. Or there's cops that have raped people before. Then turn your emergency flashers on and slow down so they know that you're going to stop, and pull over at a well-lit area in a public place where there's a lot of people around that can see what's going on, even with the police. And I personally always film them. I don't stick it right in their face, but I record police encounters because not all of them are honest. And if it's at night, turn your dome light on. Let them see in the car so that they can see where your hands are at. Keep your hands on the steering wheel, plain sight. Don't make any sudden reaches or grabs. And if they ask you for your driver's license, proof of insurance, if you're getting your insurance out of the glove compartment, say my insurance is in my glove compartment. Tell them what you're doing to try to keep violence down. Let them know what you're doing. If you don't have any guns, and tell them you don't have any guns. If they say, do you have any weapons in the car, and you're in another state that doesn't allow weapons, and you're legally allowed to carry them in your state, some states don't have reciprocal agreements. So, be very careful. If you put them in a locked container away from you, and the bullets aren't in the gun, then most places it's legal to do that. In a locked container, they have to have a search warrant to get it. If it's readily accessible, even if you have a handgun carry permit in the state that you're allowed to carry it in, or if you don't have to have one, it could be illegal in another state. When you cross state lines, you're subject to the other state's laws. Some states are more pro-Second Amendment than others are. So be very leery about taking your firearm across state lines. If you do, separate the gun from the ammunition, take the gun apart, put it in a locked container, and they would need a search warrant to be able to find it then. And I'm not telling you to carry a gun illegally, I'm just telling you how to carry it legally. So let's see how many people we got on here. We'll go along with this dialogue, how to stay alive when you are dealing with police. And like, share, and comment, spread the message. So the way you stay alive is, look at the beautiful view, is you listen to what I'm telling you, and keep things as calm as you can, and let them know what moves you're making. And if they ask where you're coming from, respectfully, I don't want to answer questions. I'm going to remain silent. That's your right. Tell them what you're doing. My insurance is in the glove compartment. I'm reaching for it. I don't have a gun anywhere. If you got a gun in the glove compartment and you're maybe even lawfully, and you're going for your registration in the glove compartment, he might think you're going for your gun. So tell them my registration is in my glove compartment, and in the glove compartment I have a gun. He might want to get it out for you. I mean, let him know. And some officers are more antsy than other officers. I've stopped people with the gun right beside them in the seat, and for speeding, and the person had a cowboy hat on, and they didn't do anything suspicious, and I just let them leave it there. I just told them, please don't touch your gun, and they didn't. And I'm not afraid of guns. It's something to be aware of, and police officers are generally very cautious and conscientious when it comes to guns, some more than others. And if you have a gun, tell them where it's at if you're going to reach anywhere near it, so they won't be surprised and have a reason to shoot you. If they ask you to step out of the vehicle in Tennessee, you have to step out of the vehicle. So do that. If you're being detained, then you have and a traffic stop is a temporary detainment, then you have your constitutional rights pull in. If they ask if you're carrying any weapons, if you're in a state where they don't allow you to carry weapons, you got a weapon on you, somewhere in your car, you got tools. I wouldn't admit to a crime myself personally. I'm going to remain silent, and I don't admit to criminal acts. If you want to do that in court later. So replay. Traffic stop. Hands visible. Give required documents. Don't talk. Don't consent to searches. Ask am I free to leave. And be completely compliant with them. Argue with them in court. So we're gonna open up this letter that we got from the federal court. Now I won't show you everything if it's something confidential. But we got this lawsuit filed in federal court trying to get my law license. And I'm going to open it live on YouTube. I'm not going to show anything confidential. I'm going to look at it first and see what it says. So this is order covering depositions from the court. So it just tells if I get that far in the depositions, it's just general instructions. Order governing motion to dismiss. So a motion to pursuant to Federal Rule 12b6 is discouraged if the defect is likely to be cured by amending the complaint. Therefore, the parties must meet and confer prior to filing for a motion to dismiss to determine whether it can be avoided. So, in order to file a motion to dismiss, I have to meet with them, and we have to talk about before I file the motion to dismiss. And if they're going to file a motion to dismiss, they will call me. They will have to talk to me. They're a lawyer. They'll have to call me and talk to me and talk about why they're dismissing it and see if we can resolve it. So they have to talk to me before they do that, and they will. Sometimes they don't like what I say, but they will. And I'm respectful. I'm just very legal. Hello. Memorandum recording, sealing confidential information. This is so some stuff they put under seal that they don't want everybody to know everything that goes on in lawsuits. So this is just a notice about sealing requirements. If you file a lawsuit, you'll get one of these. A pro se lawsuit. If you don't, your attorney will get one. And let's see if there's any. This is pretty long about confidential information. You want to be careful not to give out any information they tell you not to. You don't want to mess with a federal judge. Trust me, and I haven't never messed with them. So it's signed by Catherine Coster, District State Judge in Tennessee. And okay, so that's all they've got. I made a motion for the United States Marshal to deliver the subpoena, the summons. And that hasn't been answered in this, so they'll probably let me know. I'll have to have a judge to see if the U.S. Marshals are going to. So this is just general information that you get when you file a federal lawsuit, governing some general stuff. And if they want to file make something confidential, then they'll have to file papers, and I'll have to not divulge what they want confidential. So we have filed a federal lawsuit to try to get my law license so that I can go to court and represent y'all. They won't give them to me because I'm too honest, is what I think. And I think they're not honest, and they're blackballing me. That's what I think. And if I can drag them into court, I intend to show that. So, in dealing in traffic stops or police encounters on the roads, a police may stop you if they have reasonable suspicion that a person has committed or is about to commit a crime and may frisk the suspect for weapons. If they have reasonable suspicion that the suspect is armed or dangerous without violating the Fourth Amendment prohibition on unreasonable searches and seizures, Supreme Court of Ohio affirmed. So Terry versus Ohio was a case that you need to be aware of. You can be walking down the sidewalk and the police say, stop. Stop. And they say, keep your hands where I can see them. And you do. And they tell you, put your hands on the wall. So, now, I never did that, because when you tell them to put your hands on the wall, they can push away from you. Tell them to turn around and hold their hands out or put them on their head, they ain't got nothing to balance on, push off on them. A lot of them don't know the program and don't study defensive tactics, and so they make them put their hands against the car, and all kinds of different stuff like that. But when you think tactically and you think about things ahead of time, which is what lawyers do, what I do, is if you tell them to put their hands on a car, or if a police officer does, and you're dealing with somebody that's violent and dangerous, what they might do is they'll use the car to push off and hurt you. But if you tell them, put your hands on your head, they ain't got nothing to push off on. So I never told them, put your hands on the car. You hear them all the time, put your hands on the car, put your hands on the wall. I never did that. You're giving them a leverage. So, cops, there's a little education there. Don't give them no leverage. I didn't. One reason I never got hurt. But they can do that. They can tell you, stop, put your hands on your head, and they come up and pat you down. You say, well, I haven't done anything, free country. Well, they can do that. Don't resist that. Do what they tell you, because they may suspect you of committing a crime, and they have a right to initially, if they have a reason, they don't have to tell you, hey, I got reason you committed a crime, will you please? They ain't got to tell you all that. They ain't got time to tell you that. And the law has afforded them the legal right. If you're walking down the sidewalk, you can work it out later where they had the legal right. You're walking down the sidewalk and they say, stop. I'd stop. And they say, put your hands on your head. I'll put my hands on my head. You do that too. And then they walk up and pat you down outside your clothing. Under Terry versus Ohio, they have a legal right to do that. Comply. Go along with the program. Now, if they didn't have a legal right, you can work that out later. And there's going to be minimal damage for that, less of intrusion in a federal lawsuit. But do what they tell you on the street, or they may kill you. There may have been a violent murder, and you fit the description. And when you act dangerous or put your hand somewhere, they may shoot you, and they may clear them because you didn't comply with what they said, even though you didn't commit the murder. So go along with the program. They literally have a right to do that. Terry versus Ohio. And the reason is, in Terry versus Ohio, it was a case where they had a police officer. This is the law. A police officer in 1963, year before I was born, Martin McFadden, was on duty in downtown Cleveland, Ohio, when he noticed two men standing on a street corner. McFadden watched one of the men, John W. Terry versus Ohio, walk down the street, look through a store window, then walk a short distance further before turning around and returning where he started, stopping to peer in the window again on his way back. The other man, Richard Colton, then repeated Terry's movements. As McFadden, the police officer, watched the pair repeat this routine many times, a third man then joined them, and the three began walking down the street towards the store. So they got three men in the city walking up to the store, peering in the window of the store, one of them, and then walks back, and then another man peers in a window, and they do that several times. Now, there's no crime that he can say they committed or do anything, but here we go on. As McFadden watched the pair repeat the routine many times, a third man then joined them, and three began walking down the street towards the store. So they've done this several times. Walk up there, look in the window, walk back, walk up there, look in the window, walk back, and then all three of them start walking near the store. McFadden suspected the men had been casing the store in preparation for robbing it. So he thinks, the police officer thinks, although he committed no crime, he has more than a hunch. He has articulable reason to say that they may be getting ready to rob that store because he thinks they were casing it, looking in the window, walking back and then looking in the window. So he has articulable reason, although no crime that he can say has been committed, he believes that they might be going to rob the store, that their activities, walking up to the store, looking in the window, walking back, walking up to the store, looking in the window, is reason why he thinks they were casing it. All three of them walking together. He thinks they're going in to rob the store. That is enough under Terry versus Ohio for the police officer to say stop and pat them down outside of their clothing. Now that's legal. It's called Terry versus Ohio. Very important case. Police officers use it all across the United States every day to pat down people that haven't committed a crime if they can tell you why that they think you're committing a crime. In this case, they were looking in the window. In other cases, it's different. But if they can spell out why that they think that you may be possibly about to commit a crime or have already, then they have a reason to say stop. It's not unconstitutional. It's reasonable. And they don't have to explain to you, well, we've seen you doing this. Would you please turn around? They just say stop, and you have to do what they tell you to. And McFadden suspected the men had been casing the store in preparation for robbing it. So it followed and confronted them. He asked their names, but they offered only non-committal mumbling amateurs. McFadden then grabbed Terry and Colton, and he patted them down the outside of their clothes. And found a weapon on one of them. On June 10th, 1968, notice after I was born, 4 years, the U.S. Supreme Court issued an 8-1 decision, so it was almost unanimous. Terry, that upheld the Constitution of the stop and frisk procedure as long as the police officer has reasonable suspicion that the person is about to commit a crime, has committed a crime, or is in the process of committing a crime, and may be armed and presently dangerous. So it's a safety search for weapons. Now, they can't stick your hand in your pocket unless they feel a gun, or can't search for drugs or intrude, but they can pat down your outer clothing on a Terry stop for weapons. And they may ask you questions, names, or they may not, if depending on the circumstances of what they suspect. The reasoning was that the police officers need to protect themselves outweighed the limited intrusion involved. The court ruled that officers could stop a person if they had reasonable suspicion that criminal activity was afoot, and could then frisk the person who was stopped if they had reasonable suspicion that the person was armed and dangerous. Neither intrusion required the police have the higher level probable cause that would be needed to arrest or conduct a full-scale search. So that's more than a hunch that I just don't feel good about this situation, to reasonable suspicion that they can articulate what they were doing. And if they can articulate that, even if you're completely innocent of a crime, then they have the right to stop you and pat you down the outside of your clothing for weapons. That's perfectly legal, and you won't be able to sue them over that. That would so the court defined the new lesser standard of reasonable suspicion being less than probable cause, but more than just a hunch, stating that a police officer must be able to point specific articulable facts which, taken together with rational inferences from those facts, reasonably warrant the intrusion. So they have a right to stop you, and they may not explain it to you. Go along with the program. You can sue them later in court if they're completely off base, but they may have a good reason. They probably will. So go along with the program. Let's see how many people got in here, and we'll talk about some more stuff that you might need to know. Like, share, comment. So we got a few people on here, and a few haters on here. Thank the haters. Lies don't carry a lot of weight, trust me. So Tennessee is not a must ID on a Terry stop. Refusal by itself in the state crime, so you don't have to identify yourself on a Terry stop. They can't charge you with a crime for not identifying yourself later. So like if you're walking down the sidewalk and they suspect because you looked in a window or something that had an open store, that's not even illegal, that you might be casing the place, and they tell you to stop and ask you what your name is, then you don't necessarily have to tell them. And they pat the outside of your clothing down, find out you're not armed, then they can't later charge you with not identifying yourself, because that's not a crime in and of itself. Now, if you were casing a place and they can prove that, or they found a gun on you and you're a felon, then they can charge you that, but they can't initially charge you with not identifying yourself, but they can charge you with lying about your name if you tell them a false name. So don't tell them a false name. Drivers of a car, if they stop you in a car, you have a duty to show them your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. You do not have a duty to admit to any crime, and I would not, because they're going to get a pound of flesh, and you can work out if you think that you should pay a due fine for what you were doing. That's fine. You can work out that at the guilty plea after you figure out they're not going to take a pound of flesh out of you. So as of January 26, Hobble stop and identity states that are most commonly cited as having statutes where police can require you to state your name during a lawful traffic stop, during a lawful Terry stop. Now, these are the states in a Terry stop where you would have to identify yourself if they ask you to. In Tennessee, if they stop, put your hands on your head, what's your name? You can say, I don't want to identify myself. And then they pat you down, don't find weapons, and they can't prove that you did anything. You still don't have to identify them. They can't say, well, we're going to charge you with a crime in Tennessee because you didn't tell us who you are, and you won't tell us who you are. You don't have to in Tennessee, as far as I know. Now, I'm not giving legal advice. I wouldn't. But in these states, you have to identify yourself. In Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Delaware, if they stop you on a Terry stop and ask for your name, evidently in these states, they say, what's your name? And you're in Arkansas. Stop, what's your name? You have to identify yourself. In these states, they charge you with a crime. Florida, but Florida's limited to if they have a suspect of loitering, prowling, constitutes not a broad Terry stop rule in every situation in Florida. So in Florida, in some circumstances, you're required to identify yourself. In some states, you shouldn't. You can't. In Georgia, you have to identify yourself. Often in the loitering context. In Illinois, they stop you on a Terry stop. Reasonable articulate suspicion that you're committing a crime, something you're doing suspicious, and they think you might be armed for their safety. Stop. Put your hands on your head. Pat you down. What's your name? You have to tell them. In Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Kansas City only, Montana, Nebraska, and Indiana, the national football champions, the college football champions, congratulations. You have to identify yourself on a Terry stop. New Hampshire, New Mexico, Nevada, New York, North Dakota, Ohio, Rhode Island, Utah, Vermont, Wisconsin, and so there's 24 states, 26 states, depending on definitions, that you have to identify yourself. Some of them, they have to have loitering charge. Usually means, it does not automatically mean you must physically identify yourself unless you're driving. But in those states you do. But Tennessee, here in the volunteer state, is not a classic highball stop and identify list, and that's a case law that case come up in. The recent Tennessee change most people miss. Tennessee targeted giving a false name. So if you give a false name, even if you're not required to give your name, then they can charge you with that, but not a broad refusal to give your name at all in a Terry stop. But I would. That's what I do. I don't have anything to hide. And, if you don't have to identify yourself on a Terry stop. So, how to invoke your rights. So, if they stop you, you're not free to go. And you're walking down the street, stop. Put your hands on your head. They pat you down outside the house, and they say, where are you going? Where you been? Or, then simply staying silent. You can't just, not going to answer any questions. It's not enough. It's insufficient to fully invoke the Fifth Amendment during custodial questioning. So if they say stop, put your hands on your head, pat you down for weapons. If they don't find any weapons, and then they talk to you, and so they've stopped you. You're in custody, and they say, where are you going to? Where you been? Just being quiet. I'm not saying anything. It's not enough to invoke your constitutional rights. To be clear and unequivocal, you must explicitly state your intent to remain silent or your desire for an attorney. So you have to clearly say that I want to remain silent. I don't want to answer any questions. It has to be unequivocal. Because if you say anything, then it can be used against you. So you have to unequivocally assert your rights. Use specific phrases. This is Law School 101. I am invoking my right to remain silent. Tell them I'm invoking my right to remain silent. Clearly. Get it on their microphone. Get on your, I want to speak with an attorney. Clearly say that. I want to remain my right to remain silent. I want to speak with an attorney. That's what I would do. Once the right is clearly invoked, law enforcement must immediately stop all questioning. So if you tell them that, I want to remain silent, I want an attorney. I'll speak with an attorney. And they keep asking you questions, that can be used against them. So tell them that clearly. You can't just rely on assuming that your rights are going to be enforced. You have to invoke them. You have to say, I want to remain silent. I won't answer any questions. I don't answer questions. However you want to phrase it. I don't answer questions. I won't answer questions. I want to speak to an attorney. Say that out loud. Invoke it. You're invoking the Constitution. The Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment's coming down on you. The whole power of the government, all the mighty forces, the military tanks, all the weapons that society buys for them to use against you. The electric chair that you could end up if you answer questions. I'm just saying. All that is protected. And I'm not saying get out of a crime. They might put you in an electric chair and you didn't deserve it. All that is protected. All those bullets are protected by a piece of paper. The government, a patrol car, a bullet, it stops him from anything with that Constitution. That's a powerful document. It's agreement. So here's some legal things. So invoke the Constitution. That's your rights. It's a piece of paper. It's an agreement. And the court should back it up. If they don't, then federal court, don't fight them on the street. File a suit. Federal court, make them answer to it. And let a federal judge look into it. They don't want to mess with a federal judge. So that's how you deal with that. We're going to look at some cases, tell you some of your rights in federal court. And thank y'all for joining me. I appreciate your time. Cops can kill you. Be very careful in dealing with them. Burgess versus Thompson, 2010, established the right to remain silent must be invoked affirmatively rather than mere silence. So being silent is not enough. Say, I want to remain silent. I don't want to answer questions. Even though you're not remain silent saying that, you have to not remain silent in order to invoke your right to remain silent. Interesting on that. So Valentis versus Texas, 2013, certified that even in non-custodial settings, you must expressly invoke the Fifth Amendment for silence not to be used against you. So here's some more case law, talking about dealing with the police. Ruled that while in Mirandized statements are inadmissible in court, a failure to provide warnings does not allow a suspect to sue an officer for civil damages. So even if they don't Mirandize you, then you still can't sue them. In federal court, failure to provide warnings is not reason for a civil lawsuit. So under 1983. So even if they don't read your rights, they failed to, and they should have, then you can't sue them for that alone. That's Vega versus Talkhorn, 2022. VEGA versus TEKOH, 2022. So even if they don't read them to you. And now I hear this a lot. People say that I was arrested for DUI and they didn't read me my rights. There's a two-prong requirement for them reading your rights. It's custody. That means if you're not in custody, if you're free to leave, they don't have to read your rights. They come up to you and start asking you questions, they don't have to read your rights. That's consent. Now, if they got 3 officers around you, it's not consent, but I would ask them, I'm free to leave. So it has to be custody. So that's the first element you want to prove, that it's custody. The second thing is interrogation. So if they arrest you and they don't question you about the crime, they don't have to read you your rights. Because at custodial custody, you're in custody, interrogation. So those two prongs, they have to read your right. If they have you in custody, you're not free to go, and they ask you questions about the crime, general questions, your name, stuff like that, that's not, they have to read your rights. So custodial interrogation. So if you're arrested on a DUI stop, that's considered a temporary detention, and questions about the DUI is not considered where they have to interrogate you. They don't have to come up to your car and say that you have a right to remain silent and all that. So they don't have to inform you that. You do have a right to remain silent, but they don't have to tell you that. They can arrest you, do the whole complete full DUI stop, ask you questions, ask you to recite the alphabet, ask you to stand on one leg, count to 30 and all that stuff without reading your rights. They don't have to, and they can literally arrest you, put you in jail without ever reading your rights on a DUI stop. Now, that's not legal rights. That's not legal advice. That's just what I know. So just because they didn't read your rights don't mean it's not legal. You need to know your rights ahead of time. So you have to invoke your rights and know them even if they don't read them to you. And just because they don't read them to you, they can't sue them over them, and the rest is still good. The only time they have to read you your rights is if you're in custody and they interrogate you. They ask you questions. If they don't, if you're in custody and they don't interrogate you, they don't have to read your rights. And a DUI stop is not considered custodial interrogation. It's a temporary detention on the side of the road. They can ask you all those questions, determine whether or not you're drunk, and the Miranda warnings don't apply. Now, they might apply later after they arrest you if they start answering your questions about that. But prior to that, they don't. Police may ask questions about warning if there's an immediate threat to the public safety. So if there's an immediate threat, somebody's going around shooting people. And they don't have to read your rights. That's absurd. Public safety may ask questions without warnings if there's immediate threat to the public locating a discarded weapon. Routine booking. Questions regarding basic identity, name, address, date of birth do not require Miranda warnings. Spontaneous statements. Now this is important. There's no expectation of privacy in the backseat of the patrol car. So if they put you in the backseat of the patrol car, don't ask you questions after DUI arrest, and you start going off about how drunk you are, then they can use that against you. And they can even use your talking, how you're slurring in the backseat of a patrol car without having read you your rights, because you don't have an expectation of privacy in the backseat of a patrol car, even if they don't read your rights. So expect that you're not private in the backseat of a patrol car, and I assure you, you are not. So, pre-arrest question. During the initial stop, you are generally considered detained rather than custody. Officers can ask you, like, have you been drinking or where are you coming from, without reading your rights. Physical evidence. Miranda rights protect only testimonial evidence. Your spoken or written words, they do not apply to physical evidence such as field sobriety test, breathalyzer. So they don't apply to Miranda warnings. The physical tests don't apply. They don't have to read your rights to give you a sobriety test. So I hear that a lot. They didn't read my rights. They don't have to. It's not considered custodial interrogation in that instance. Arrest without interrogation. If you're arrested but the police do not intend to question you further, they're not legally obligated to read your rights. Many DUI cases rely entirely on officer observation and chemical tests, making post-arrest questions unnecessary for convictions. That's the reason why people say they didn't read my rights. Well, they didn't have to. They didn't question you after the arrest, and they didn't need to on a DUI stop. So that is irrelevant. They can still get a conviction without ever reading you your rights. So we are suing them. I passed the bar. Here's my name on the list. Charles Van Morgan, where I passed the bar again. This is the second time. And they won't give me my law license, so we're suing them. I showed you the letter that we opened on air. General information, if you file a lawsuit, then you'll get that. You'll generally get that information in the mail. And the next thing I'm waiting for is I filed a motion to have the federal marshals deliver the summons. If the judge denies that motion, then I'll have to serve the summons, not myself, but I'll have to find other ways to serve it. And we'll do that. And so that's the next thing I'm waiting for. I have 90 days to file the summons. That is to subpoena them into court. To summons them into court. That's what I'm waiting for. So I'll let y'all know when I get the summons. Thank y'all for joining me. This is Friday. If we have some news going on, we will show up live, boots on the ground on the scene. And also, we should be back Monday morning. And thank y'all so very much for joining me. Like and help the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel. We're over 2 million people watch this channel in the past 5 months. So thank y'all so very much. We'll show you the beautiful view. God loves you, and thank you for the hearts. And I do too. Until next time, I appreciate your time.